Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. So today we are going to continue chapter number 2 that we discussed in the last session also. Before I proceed to the session, I would request everyone to ask your doubts as much as you can. Trust me, ask your doubts as much as you can. Reason because this will really help you to understand the topic and the things which we are discussing over here. So do not shy from asking your doubts. Number two, during the session, okay, I would request you to take your notes. These notes are important and will be helpful before your exam. Like, a day before your exam, these notes will help you in quick revision. So please take the notes with me, okay, and ask as many doubts as you can. Clear? Shall we continue? Okay. So, what we are going to discuss today and what we have discussed in the last session, I'll give a quick recap of that. Okay. So, in the last session, we discussed about essay 240. We discussed what is the content of chapter 2 and we discussed essay 240. Essay 240, this is the auditor's responsibility relating to a fraud and audit of a financial statement. Okay. Now, here we discussed about the fraud risk. We discussed which are the fraud risk factors, what is the auditor's responsibility. Remember three terms: who, what and when. Who is responsible for what, like management is responsible for preventing and detecting the fraud. Okay, what auditor is required to do and when auditor is required to do. What auditor is required to do, we discussed a lot of things in that. Things that are required to be carried at the stage of risk assessment, at the stage of preparing the plan for audit, at the stage of essay 330 when we are creating a response. Then we discussed about additional things that are required to be done as per the presumed risk like revenue recognition and management override of control. There are some additional things that we were supposed to do, and these all are things are required to be done either at the stage of planning or throughout the audit, because planning is a continuous process and that keeps on happening. Once we do the audit, we get the audit evidence, and on the basis of that we again update the planning. Okay, so that what we discussed in the last session. Any doubts with respect to that? Okay, no doubts. Great. Let me proceed to the next topic, the topic for the today. We are going to discuss essay 250, that is the considerations of laws and regulations in an audit of a financial statement. Okay, that is the consideration of laws and regulations in an audit of a financial statement. Can anyone tell me what is no-CLAR and what we have discussed in no-CLAR? Remember something we discussed in our previous session, no-CLAR? Anyone? What we discussed at that point in time? Can someone tell me what we discussed at that point in time in no-CLAR? It will also serve a revision for you guys. Come on, quickly.
Non-compliance of law and regulation.
Yes, but what was the thing that we discussed in that? If you can provide a quick summary. Okay, so
whenever we encounter with the non-compliance or identification of non-compliance with the law and rules and regulations, then we have to perform some steps. Professional, senior professional auditor and professional auditors. Whenever it is there, we have to perform few odd steps. That's what shows no class.
absolutely correct. Yes. Yes. Anyone would like to add something more to this? No? Okay. Remember, we discussed something with respect to the responsibility of the professional accountant and senior professional accountant when they encounter anything with respect to non-compliance of laws and regulations. Remember, we discussed that in detail. Okay, what is non-compliance, what is a definition of non-compliance, which laws and regulations we are discussing, or which laws and regulations we are talking about. Anyone can recall that particular part? Now at that point in time when we discussed that, I also highlighted or made write one thing, that this particular NOCLAR we will be again conducting, or we will be again linking this particular topic with the SA 250. When we will do SA 250, we will discuss this topic again. Okay, so at that point in time also we I made you write that, okay, please write this is somewhat linked to the SA 250. Now here under the SA 250 we are talking about that what is the auditor's responsibility when we deal with the laws and regulations that are applicable in case of an audit. In case of an audit, what is the responsibility of the auditor? Can anyone in summary tell me what auditor is required to do with the laws and regulations that are applicable to an entity? So let's say I am doing the audit of a particular company. Why should I worry about laws and regulations? Can anyone tell me?
Financial statements have to be prepared as per the rules and regulations. And
Okay.
in response to NOCLA, first he has to obtain the understanding of the matter, what it is actually against the law and regulation. Then he has to adjust the matter, like discussing with the management, those are with government's superior, and what non-compliance has been happened. Then finally he will be deciding what has to be done uh, regarding that non-compliance and taking the further action. And then he has to document everything, what the action has been taken and what everything has happened has to be documented in proper manner.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Anyone else would like to add something? Why
Is this
I have
non-compliance?
yeah.
Sorry? No,
No, no,
sorry. Please continue, sir.
no. I was saying that my question was, why should I worry about laws and regulations when I'm doing an audit?
Sir, as an auditor of financial statement, it is the responsibility not to just audit with respect to the Companies Act or the accounting standards. Other laws are also there, the breach of which is also equally important to not to bring, like labor laws, GST, income tax, then provident fund laws and regulations. So any of non-compliance of any of these is the required responsibility of auditor to bring to the notice.
Absolutely, yes. Correct. Correct, Sumit, Monica, Yogesh. Yes. So when we are doing the audit, it is not only the financial statements, not only the company set, but a lot of things which come into a play. Okay, that we need to think of, and we need to, as an auditor, we need to consider. Okay. So I'll come to the notes and we'll quickly start taking the notes also for this one. So SA 250, okay, that is considerations of laws and regulations, consideration of laws and regulations in an audit of financial statement. Somewhere it is also provides the responsibility of the auditor with respect to laws and regulations that are applicable in the audit of a financial statement. As the name suggests, that it is the consideration of the laws and regulations when we do the audit, that we have to consider the laws and regulations when we are doing audit of a financial statement. Okay, in an audit of a financial statement, that is required to be considered. Okay. Now, let's say for example, ABC Private Limited. Now, this is a simple company where the Companies Act might be applicable. Now, if I just remove this Private Limited and if I say, okay, we are doing the audit of ABC Limited, it is a NSE listed entity. Okay. Now, if I talk about the laws and regulations applicable to this particular entity, laws and regulations applicable to this particular entity, first will be the Companies Act, second, SEBI regulations, okay, third, listing agreement, now if this company is a NBFC or such kind of scenario, you know, where RBI might be involved, so RBI regulations also will be applicable. If this company is a manufacturing, okay, so there might be different environmental laws applicable. Okay, then there are other laws and regulations that is applicable, for example, Income Tax Act, you have a GST, you have ESIC related laws, you have PF related laws. Okay, you have multiple laws and regulations applicable to this particular entity. Clear? Now the question comes is, am I required to do audit for each and every law and regulation? Let's say environmental laws. So am I required to perform procedures for environmental laws, for listing agreement? Let's say if there are, you know, local laws also applicable, local municipal laws. Laws and regulations. Because let's say it is operating in an area where local municipal laws or regulation applicable. In some areas you have a specific, you know, let's say for example, it is a SEZ having office in a SEZ or a IFSC. So IFSC regulations and laws will be applicable. Or let's say it is operating from some, you know, industrial development park. For example, in Mumbai you have a MIDC, in Gujarat you have a GIDC, in other states you have, you know, other kind of industrial development parks. So those laws and regulations are applicable. Am I required to do audit procedures to verify compliance with each law or regulation? So the question is whether the auditor is required to check compliance with each and every law. Simple. And if I have to check compliance, then I have to do the audit procedures also. So am I required to do all these audit procedures and check compliance? Yes or no? With the reason. Come on guys. Simple, pretty straightforward question. Am I required to check compliance with each and every law in detail? Or, you know, am I required to perform procedures to check the compliance with each and every law? Yes, no?
No, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, Sumit, good.
No,
Sir,
sir.
depends on engagement of.
Sorry, Monica, what you are saying?
Depend on audit engagement.
Let's say you are doing statutory audit, or we are talking about statutory audit as of now, not any other engagement.
If a statutory auditor, then yes.
Okay. Okay, Ginny, good. Okay, Hemant. Okay, Sumit. Anyone else?
So far as Companies Act, I'm talking about ABC Limited, which is
Yes.
Companies Act, SEBI regulation, listing agreement, and RBI regulation. We should check because at the time of taking up the assignment also, we used to check all these parameters. But so far as others is concerned, only if during the audit, it suggests that there is some non-compliance or there is some flaws, material of course, then we should go for the detailed procedure.
Okay, good, very good. Anyone else would like to add something?
The audit is done basically to provide that the given data is uh, audited and seen that it is given correctly to the extent of check we have done, and we will not be responsible to dig into other regulations and laws. Whatever the financial data we are having, we will be seeing that it is true and fair view is shown on the financial data.
Okay, yes. So you are
So
saying,
they will, yeah, there will not be need, means maybe basic salary we will be seeing like whether it is calculated in the PF, ESI is calculated, but in depth we will not go into calculation that whether that particular percentage is fine or not. Those things and all we will not be, we are not the person to check those things, sir.
okay, great, absolutely, yes. Anyone else would like to add something? Anyone else? Okay. So how do I decide which law I need to look into? So most of you have answered that, okay, I need to check on a selective basis. Okay. So for example, some of you said, okay, I could check Companies Act, SEBI, listing agreement, the RBI, but not others. Some said, okay, we need to check on collective basis, selective basis. How to decide which law to check and which law not to check, on or which law to select on a, on which basis? Like, okay, I can exclude Income Tax Act or not, I can exclude GST or not. How to decide that?
Maybe the standard provides those things, standards on auditing.
That is there, we that detail we have definitely in the standard, but what your logic says, how to decide that? Because see, each and every standard works on the logic. If you understand the logic, you will definitely understand the standard for sure. Or some of you have already answered.
Sir, at the time of initial starting audit proceeding, we obtain understanding of the business entity. At that time, we can have knowledge of which type of acts will be applicable to our entity.
Yes, okay, great. Anyone else?
So financial statement stands as a basis for all other laws and regulations, sir. Even if income tax, if you take, they take this financial statements as base for calculating their whatever the rules they have. They, for everything they depend on the financial statements. So the thing is, basically, like which materially, not materially, but lawfully, which have some specifications to be displayed or disclosed in the financial statement, we may have to look into those things, sir.
Absolutely correct. Anyone else?
That if non-compliance of any other law has affecting the penalties by which the entity's going concern assumption is affected, so we have to check the compliance of that law.
Yes, absolutely correct. Yes. So see, as you guys already said, and have you provided the correct answer? Everything here we are talking about, first of all, linked to the financial statements. We are doing a statutory audit. We are doing the audit of a financial statement. That's why I specifically wrote the name of the standard also. This says then audit of financial statement is, and we are considering the laws in an audit of a financial statement. So the base and the prime thing that we need to understand is the laws and regulations that principally impact the numbers and the disclosures in the financial statement are the important, and not the important, are the laws and regulations that we need to see first. Okay, so there are two type of laws and regulations basically that impact an entity. One, a law or regulation that has a direct effect. So types of laws and regulation. So there are two types. One that has a direct effect on the financial statement. So these are the laws and regulations that determine that how your numbers are reported, how your disclosures are working, okay, how your financial statement will look like, how your numbers will be computed. Then apart from that, there is other type of laws and regulations that we call as other laws. Other laws and regulations. These are the laws and regulations which do not have a direct impact on the financial statement. So to write, these do not have any direct impact on financial statement.
Sir, it
Now,
is not visible.
hmm?
Sir, whatever you are writing, it is not visible on the screen.
Okay, sorry. Now visible?
Yes.
Sorry, might be some technical issue. Sorry for that. Okay, so types of laws and regulations. So I was talking about one is a direct effect, another is the other laws and regulations. Okay, now these other laws and regulations, they do not have a direct impact on the financial statement. So I have to bifurcate between these two. Whenever I will go for an audit of a financial statement, I will identify which are the laws and regulations having direct impact. For example, my Companies Act that has direct effect, SEBI has direct effect, listing agreement has direct effect, even SEBI regulation, RBI regulations will have a direct effect. Now, environmental laws and regulations, these are other laws and regulations, OLR. Basically, they are necessary for the operations of the entity, but may not directly contribute to your financial statement. Okay, so when I talk about other laws and regulations, they are necessary. They are necessary to be complied for operations, for the entity's operation. For example, manufacturing, you have a manufacturing plant, so environmental laws you have to comply with, like this much pollution should be there, this much water wastage should be there, how the water should be treated before disposing into the rivers or before disposing into the ground. If you do not comply, they may seal your factory, they may close your operations. Okay, so these are mandatory, these are necessary to comply with, but from operations point of view. So they do not have direct impact on the financial statement, but are necessary from operational point of view. Okay, operations point. Now that's why we call them other laws and regulations, and we have to look into both. There is nothing like, okay, we will leave the other laws and regulations, I will not look into that. No, I have to see in both of the categories, but the level that I will look into, the things I will do into from audit procedures point of view, or you can say the risk assessment that I will perform for both of the type of laws and regulations will differ, and that is we need to understand. Because some of you I already answered that, okay, that due to inherent limitation, due to time limitations, we cannot do a detailed audit procedure for each law and or regulation, and that is true. There are inherent limitations because of which we cannot do detailed audit procedures for each law and regulations, and that's why we have to divide in two categories. Clear? Any doubt till now? Any doubt? Okay. Now I will write few terms. Okay. I will write few terms throughout the chapter that you need to also write it down somewhere, or remember that these are the key terms that you are not required to change when you are writing your answer. Okay. So the first one is, just a minute, yeah. The first one is that laws and regulations, this is the key term, laws and regulations recognized to have a direct effect on the determination of material amounts and disclosures in financial statement. Now, why I am writing this particular sentence, or I am calling it a term, yes Sumit, you can. So why I'm writing this particular sentence or calling it a term? Reason, because I can write, okay, direct effect on financial statement, laws and regulations have a direct effect, but that is not sufficient or enough to justify the term. Reason, because when I say direct impact on the financial statement, I have to talk about direct impact on the determination of material amounts. So when I talk about impact on financial statement, I mean to say determination of the material amounts which are there in your financial statements and disclosures. So that's why you have to write the full term whenever you are writing an exam. Don't just write, okay, direct effect, laws having direct effect. No. Sometimes students write, okay, laws having major impact. No. They change the term, but do not do that. Reason, because it will not give the correct meaning that is required, and you are expected to write this particular in your answer, so that the reader also can understand what you are writing. Clear? Okay, so this is a direct effect key term. Now we will write another key term which is linked to the other laws and regulations. For other laws and regulations, we will write that other laws and regulation that do not have a direct effect on the determination of amounts and disclosures, okay, in the financial statement, but the compliance with which may be fundamental to the operating aspects of the business. Okay, I have written the same thing over here to explain you these laws do not have a direct impact on the FS, but are necessary from the operations point. In exam, I have to write the language that is other laws and regulations that do not have a direct effect on the determination of the amounts and disclosures in FS, but the compliance with which may be fundamental to the operating aspect of the business. Simple terms, that they are necessary from the operating point of view. Clear? So these are the two key terms that you remember, that you are required to remember and write the way that is required. Okay. Now, what as an auditor I am required to do for each and every category? So as you said, for the laws that have a direct effect, I am required to check the compliance. For other laws, if something comes up to me, then I am required to verify, and that is the thing we need to understand. So the objective here of the auditor should be that first, for the direct one, to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence regarding compliance with the provisions. Means I am required to obtain evidence to check whether they have complied with the law or regulation for the direct one. But for the other laws and regulations, what I am required to do is to perform specified audit procedures. Okay. Specified audit procedures to help to identify the non-compliance. Means I am not required to obtain evidence. No, I am not required to go and check the detailed audit evidence for the compliance. No, but I need to perform some procedures. Okay, not the procedures the way I am required to perform for the direct laws, but some procedures so that I can understand whether there is any non-compliance or not. See the term in both. On the one hand, I am taking a kind of positive assurance. This is my positive assurance with respect to compliance. Okay, boss, I have complied with the law and regulation. I am 100% sure. On the other hand, I am talking about negative assurance. That, okay, something has not come up to me, or I perform the procedures, but nothing has came up to me that that can point out towards a non-compliance. So I think everything is compliant. Are you getting the point? The audit approach between both of the categories. On the one hand, positive approach, positive assurance. On the other hand, negative assurance. Kind of, I will perform the procedures to identify non-compliance, but if something not comes up, or if I am not able to identify non-compliance, I'll assume it is complied. Clear till now? Okay. Now, when we discuss about the term non-compliance, basically, okay, it is the same that we discuss in NOCLA. When I talk about non-compliance, is an act of omission.
Sir, I have a
Yes.
query.
Yeah.
So can the impact of other non-compliance with other laws and regulations be too big that impact the entity and its going concern, like the environmental laws? If the entity is not following, then it can impact the entity's going concern, and that will be more than the direct effect.
Yes, it can be, absolutely. So there are scenarios where, because of the non-compliance with the environmental laws, whole of the plant was shut down and the company went into a liquidation. That is there, actually there. That's why we cannot even leave a single law. Either we need to classify that as an other law or a direct effect law. For other law and regulations, we are doing some procedures to identify the non-compliance, and we have to follow professional skepticism every time, just to be alert if something comes up in front of us with respect to the non-compliance. I'm not sure how many of you are aware or not, but in most of such kind of laws, you talk about environmental law, you talk about other laws that are there with respect to IFSC, or you can say development park, industrial development park, SEZ, even for the RBI and SEBI, there are separate provisions for the compliance audit. Means they also consider that a separate compliance audit is required to understand the compliance with law and regulation. For example, simple example, you might be aware there is a SEBI investment advisors regulation. In that, there is a separate compliance audit under the regulation 19.3, which is required to be done by someone else other than the statutory auditor. So that's why these provisions were later brought into in different laws and regulations to help understand whether the company is complying with those laws or regulations or not. Any doubt? Any doubt? Nope. Okay. Now the question comes is, okay, fine, I understood what is the objective of the auditor. This is the objective at the end that I want to achieve. This is my final goal. But how to reach till this goal? Let's say, for example, to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence regarding the compliance with the provisions of direct laws. Okay, how will you obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence? What you will do? Can anyone tell me?
Sir, inquiring with management and those charged with governance.
Okay.
Sir,
Anyone else? Yeah.
sir, sometimes do sample based like inspection.
Yes, yes. Good. Yes. Anyone else would like to add anything?
Check for the show cause notices which has been received under any law.
Okay.
Firstly, understand the nature of the audit we are company, or the nature of the audit we are doing, and the applicable laws and regulations, so that we can collect the details of maybe the audit reports done in those particular law or any other documents relating to those.
Yes, yes. Great. But what will be the first step that you will take? The first step in this scenario. Let's say, for example, these are the steps that throughout the audit I will be taking. But what will be the first thing you will do?
Understand the nature.
Okay. Absolutely correct, Vignesh. Yes.
Trying
So
the
at first
framework.
we check.
Financials to be checked. Okay.
So at first we have to check that what are the laws and regulations which is applicable to the entity.
Absolutely correct. Yes. Yes. So the first thing, the first requirement that we are required to do is to understand which are the laws that will fall under the category of direct effect, or the laws which will fall under the category of other laws and regulations. And for that, we need to perform inquiries, we need to obtain an understanding of the entity. So whatever type of law or regulation is there, now we will talk about what to do. Okay, sorry, we discuss about what to do. This is what to do. Now we will talk about how to achieve that, how to do. So, irrespective of the type of law or regulation, you need to obtain understanding of the entity and its environment. Can anyone tell me which essay talks about this, obtaining the understanding of the entity and its environment?
Essay 315.
Yes, absolutely correct. So as per essay 315. So we will understand the entity, how the entity is working, what are the laws applicable to them, whether it's a manufacturing, it's a bank, it's an insurance company, what kind of entity it's, what kind of environment it is working into. It is a SEZ, having operations in the FCZ, Industrial Development Park, it's into, some other zone, outside India, foreign branch, or XYZ type. First, we will understand the entity and its environment to obtain the general understanding about the regulatory framework and how the entity is complying with them. That's the very important part that we need to understand is how the entity is complying with them. Why we are checking this particular part, how the entity is complying with that particular laws and regulations. Why we are checking this? You will say, sir, this is a requirement of standard only that you are teaching. Yes, this is a requirement of standard that we need to check compliance, but we need to check compliance. Why you are checking that whether entity is aware about the compliance or not?
So again, check the financial statement, true and fair view, disclosures.
That is fine, that we will do. As an auditor, I
Only
will do
when they
IHA.
comply, it shows the true and fair view, no sir. So there is a necessity for us to check the compliance of these laws to ensure that the financial statements are true and fair.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
At first, we have to check that whether the entity knows what are the compliances they need to follow.
Absolutely correct. Yes. So tomorrow, if I go in an audit of a financial statement, I discuss, let's say for example, there is a, company which is a listed company, or let's say company which is a NBFC. I went for the audit. I was discussing with that entity, and the entity suddenly came up to me asking a question: are we required to comply with the RBA regulations? That gives me the understanding, okay, how much they know about the laws and regulations, and accordingly that information will be used in my risk assessment. Now I am aware, boss, they do not know anything, so there is very less chance that they might have complied with the RBI laws and regulations. Accordingly, I need to adjust my audit procedures to check for the non-compliance. That's why it's necessary to understand how the entity is complying with them, so that we can get an understanding whether management is aware about applicable laws and regulations. This is part of understanding the entity. Like, okay, I would understand these laws and regulations are applicable to the entity. Okay, I got that understanding. But whether management is aware about that or not. Sometimes a lot of companies, they even don't know that, okay, this is something we need to comply with. For example, PF and ESIC laws. A lot of companies, they don't understand fully how to comply with the labor laws. Clear? Any doubt till now? Any doubt? Okay. So that was the part number one, how to do that. We need to obtain the understanding. That is perfectly fine. We need to obtain the understanding for both of the categories, not only limited to the one category. We need to obtain for the both of categories. Then for the second category, that is where the other laws and regulations are there. over there we need to understand, okay, whether any suspected non-compliance or non-compliance is there or not. So my target was to perform specified audit procedures. Okay, my target was to perform specified audit procedures to understand or to identify the instance of non-compliance. For that, what I will do is I will do two things. One, I will do again inquiry with the management, that I already covered, but I will do a separate inquiry for the other laws and regulations. Okay. Second, I would check correspondence. Okay, I will inspect the correspondence if there are any with the relevant regulatory authority. For example, environmental laws. If there is a specific environmental regulatory authority, I will check the correspondence, whether they have sent any notice or not. Or is there any litigation going on with the environmental authority or in the National Green Tribunal? So something like that, I will inspect the documents, and from there I will understand, okay, whether is there anything that I should be aware of with respect to the non-compliances. Okay, and for the one which is there, I need to design the procedures to obtain the sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, and that is something I need to do based on specific things. I need to perform specific things, and that will be based on the laws and regulations that are applicable. Any doubt till now? Along with this, I would be obtaining management representations, okay, I would be obtaining management representations, whether they have, I will ask them, okay, confirm in the representation that you have complied with the all laws and regulations that you know, or you have informed me about all known instances of non-compliance. So there will be two things, either one, whether they have complied with laws and regulations. Second, or they have provided details of all known instance of non-compliance. So I will personally ask management, okay, tell me that is there any suspected or known non-compliance that you are already aware of, and provide me the detail of that. And in the written representation, I will also ask them to confirm that, okay, you have provided me all the list of non-compliances that you are already aware of or you suspect. Clear? Okay. Now the next question I would ask is, what if you identify a non-compliance? We are talking about, okay, we need to identify the instance of non-compliance. We need to check for the non-compliance. We need to do that. We need to do that. What if now you have identified the non-compliance? What you will do?
Ask to the management why this non-compliance is there.
Okay, great.
What are the steps the management has taken to comply with those laws and regulations?
Yes. Anyone else? Okay, Yogesh, good.
So express qualified opinion on the financial statement.
Okay, Monica, yes.
Understand about what the matter actually is, what the non-compliance it is, then discuss with the management management those charged with governments and responsible authorities in the company, then decide what the actions has to be taken.
Okay, great.
First, check the materiality with respect to the amount or with respect to the compliance of the particular provision, whether it is mandatory or how far it is severe. And then we will go ahead accordingly to report to management to see whether subsequently it has been complied with or not.
Okay, great. Yes.
What rectification steps can be taken for non-compliance to reduce the risk of occurrence of it again? And we may also take help of external authorities, advisors, and document the same.
We have to collect the evidence also to prove our findings.
Yes, yes, absolutely correct. Yes. Okay. So, absolutely correctly said. If we identify a non-compliance, or if my audit procedures, first of all, we'll talk about the audit procedures. Okay, that we need to perform when non-compliance is identified. Is identified or even suspected. So what we are required to do, or what audit procedures we are required to follow for that? First of all, whenever you identify or suspect even a non-compliance with law or regulation, as an auditor, what you need to do is understand the incidents, or you can say understand the non-compliance that is there. Okay, what kind of non-compliance it is. When I say understand the non-compliance, understand the nature of the non-compliance, law and regulation applicable or under which the non-compliance is there, who committed the non-compliance, okay, whether it is an act or omission. See, sometimes non-compliances are not omission. For example, not filing income tax return, not performing or not hiring, appointing a tax auditor, or getting books of accounts audited under tax or income tax act. So these are the omission based non-compliance where something is missed out. But sometimes the non-compliance is action based. For example, let's say you are not supposed to deal in certain kind of derivatives as per the SEBI law, and still knowingly you are dealing in that kind of derivatives. Or environmental laws, you are not supposed to release the untreated water on the land, but you are still releasing the water without treating it. So there are two type of which basically non-compliances. One where there is an omission, one there is an action. So you need to first understand the non-compliance, the nature, the law under which the non-compliance is, who committed the non-compliance or which parties are involved in it, act, whether it's an act or omission, okay, whether it has occurred or occurring. Sometimes it could be one of the instance of the non-compliance, sometimes it's a repetitive instance, or sometimes it is the instant if you do not rectify, it will carry forward. Okay, simple is kind of income tax return. You did not file the return on time, or still not filed, it will be carry forwarding till the time you rectify the non-compliance. So accordingly, you need to understand the non-compliance first. Then on the basis of that, you need to evaluate the impact on the financial statement. Evaluate the impact on financial statement. Like, okay, I did not file the income tax return on time. What could be the impact on my financial statements? Basically, there could be penalties, that I may pay up. Okay, there could be disallowance of my carry forward of loss. Okay, if I have a loss, then the loss might be disallowed, or I cannot carry forward the loss, or XYZ things that may happen. So I need to evaluate the impact of that financial impact of that non-compliance on financial statement. And to do this, to understand the non-compliance and to evaluate the impact on the financial statement, I need to discuss with the management to achieve the above target or goal. Discuss with management and, or you can say slash, those charged with governance about the non-compliance. Okay, we suspect that you have not filed income tax return. Please tell me if you have filed or not, or if you have filed, then give us the details, show us whether you are complied or not complied. Okay, or if you are not filed, then tell me the reason why you are not filed. Who was the responsible to file it? Who was the person or the officer who was given responsibility to get this task completed, and why it is not completed? So you need to obtain that details by discussing with the management and those charged with governance. Now there could be two scenarios
Sir, it is only
from.
Sir,
Sorry.
I have a query.
Yes.
Sir, it will be only applicable to the statutory auditor and not on the tax auditor.
Currently, we are talking about consideration of laws and regulation and audit of financial statement, general purpose financial statements.
Okay.
So wherever this essay will be applicable, yes, this is applicable. So for example, let's say in tax audit, you are issuing form 3. Someone has already done the statutory audit of a company. You are doing the tax audit. So you will be issuing the report in form 3CA and form 3CD. Over there you refer that the audit report has been already issued by this auditor for the financial year for this particular company in form 3CA. So like over there your responsibilities are different compared to when you do a audit under form 3CB. So you need to check from that point of view. Any further doubt? Any doubt? No? Okay. So to achieve or to discuss with the management, to achieve the target, we need to discuss with the management. Now there can be two scenarios from here. One, I get the information. Second, I don't get the information. So sufficient information was provided, or information was not provided. Okay, either the information was provided or information was not provided. So I need to understand accordingly that whether the information has been provided or not provided. If the information is provided, we will discuss later on what to do with that particular information. Okay, if the information is not provided, or if there is a lack of sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, okay, I am not able to understand the non-compliance. I am not able to evaluate the impact. There could be scenarios where you will not be able to understand what will be the impact because you don't have the details available. You have somewhat details available in your hand, but management is not ready to share the full details. And at times, management will become and say that, okay, it is confidential, we cannot share. You write in your audit report, but we will not share the detail because it's a confidential. You will not able to understand, you will not able to identify the impact of that particular non-compliance. In that case, what to do? Can anyone tell me, if let's say management is not ready to share the information, what you will do? Anyone?
So we will modify our opinion.
Okay.
the withdraw from engagement.
Okay.
Take expert opinion.
Very good. Yes.
We may perform other audit procedures so that we can get the information from about what we require.
Yes, absolutely. We will assume after performing the procedures, after discussing with the management, after getting all the details, we are not able to get sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Simple. If sufficient and appropriate audit evidence is missing. So as you guys correctly pointed out or correctly said that either I will obtain legal advice, okay, then if I can withdraw from the engagement, I will do that. Or if the impact is such that I can issue a modified opinion or qualified opinion, then I will consider the impact on audit opinion. Okay, so you need to consider the impact on audit opinion, and you need to consider the your legal responsibilities and obligations that are there. Sometimes withdrawal is not possible. Okay, so consider the legal obligations before withdrawing. Now when I say consider the impact on audit opinion, if let's say for example you don't have that much detail to understand the impact on the financial statement, and you presume that, or you think that the impact will such that it will have a very big impact on the whole of financial statement, or whole of financial statement are incorrect. Let's say for example there's a litigation going on with the environmental authorities. Now the penalties are such that the going concern can be impacted. Management is not ready to provide me the details. In that case, I can assume that okay, if the impact is of such nature that if it occurred, then it will impact the going concern of the entity, I may disclaim my opinion, or I may issue a qualified opinion. Based on the impact, I need to accordingly check that okay, what is the possible impact I am looking at for this particular kind of non-compliance, and that will be based on my experience, my understanding of law or regulation, and my limited understanding about the non-compliance that has happened at the entity level. So accordingly I will issue the opinion, qualified or disclaimer of opinion. So there is one query in which case the withdrawal is not possible. We will discuss a particular circular that was issued by SEBI, where on the quarterly reporting and the annual financial reporting in some time, or in coming lectures, and we will discuss that okay, whether withdrawal is possible, what is the responsibility or the legal obligation of the auditor in those scenarios, and there we will discuss that okay, are we required to issue the report, or withdrawal is possible or not. But usually we suggest that withdrawal is such kind of thing that should be exercised after understanding your legal obligations, because withdrawal is not a solution from non-reporting. If you identify some non-compliances, if you identify something, and if it is your duty to report, then withdrawal is not something some kind of thing that you should use to avoid your reporting requirements. Clear? Clear? Any doubts till now? And now first part, if you have sufficient information, based on the sufficient information, you need to assess the impact. Okay. So based on the sufficient information, you need to assess the impact on financial statement. After assessing the impact on the financial statement, either you need to issue the adverse opinion if the impact is of such nature, okay, or you may issue a qualified opinion, or you think that has been rectified, the non-compliance has been rectified, and there will be no penalties, or some compounding has been applied for, or some kind of condonation or relief has been applied for and that has been received, and there will be no future penalties. Accordingly, you may choose not to qualify your opinion based on the details available. So assess the impact on financial statement and assess the impact on audit opinion. Clear? Any doubt? Any doubt? Now, none of you have asked me what is the responsibility of the auditor to report to regulatory authorities. Let's say, for example, I identified a non-compliance with SEBI laws and regulations. Am I required to report to SEBI if management is not reporting?
Yes, sir.
Anyone else?
Yes, sir. If the regulations and the laws requirement is there to report by the auditor, then we have to report.
Anyone? Okay, Anila. Anyone would like to add something? Would it not be a breach of confidentiality? I am disclosing the thing without the permission of my client, where I was not supposed to report.
No, sir, as per clause 1, part 1, second schedule, if the laws and regulation requirement is there, then we have to share the information. There will be no breach of confidentiality.
Absolutely correct. So for that, we need to first understand what is the requirement of law or regulation in that scenario, whether that law or regulation requires us to report or not. It's not a straightforward answer, yes or no. Okay. It is not a straightforward answer, I would say, that okay, yes, you are required to report. But we need to understand whether reporting non-compliance to regulatory authority is required or not, and that will be totally dependent upon that particular law or regulation or its provisions, and whether is there any requirement on the auditor to report, okay, including the requirement on auditor to report to regulatory authority. Okay, so and let's say, for example, section 143(12) of Companies Act that specifically require us to report. Now let's say in some of our law or regulation there is no specific requirement, environmental law, where auditor has no specific obligation to report. in that case, I need to understand my legal responsibility, whether I am required to report or not. Over there, I may seek legal, advice. Whether is there any my responsibility to report? Should I report, or it will be counted as a breach of confidentiality? So accordingly, I need to understand the reporting requirements, and then I have to report based on that. So there is no clear-cut answer, yes or no. That depends upon the non-compliance and the law or regulation that is, under which the non-compliance is there. Any doubt till now? Any doubt?
Sir, if this question comes in MCQs, whether the auditor is required to check compliance with each and every law, then what we say, yes or no, in one word?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Can you repeat again?
Whether the auditor is required to check compliance with each and every law, if it comes in MCQ, then what can we say, yes or no? We can say yes.
See, we are not required to check the compliance with each law or regulation. As I said, I am only required to obtain positive assurance for the laws and regulations that have a direct impact. So, if you say that whether I am required to check compliance with each law or regulation, answer is no. I am required to check compliance. I am required to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence regarding the compliance with the provisions of law or regulation that have a direct impact. For the indirect laws or regulations, for the other laws and regulations, I am required to perform specified audit procedures to help identify the instance of non-compliance. Over there, my focus will be on the non-compliance, not on the compliance with the law or regulation. Kind of a negative assurance.
Okay, sir, got it. Thank you, sir.
Yep. Any other doubts? Okay, can anyone tell me if they have came across any scenario or any kind of situation which warrants the further investigation and that led to a non-compliance, identification of a non-compliance? Someone like, okay, I have to be professionally, I have to maintain professional skepticism, but where and how? Some examples, if someone can share.
By observing the entities' day-to-day operations, by visiting the plant, whether there is any child labor is working or not.
Okay, great. Anyone else would like to add? Okay, I'll tell you one. So in a particular case, we were doing the audit of legal and professional fees. So in an audit of financial statement, we were looking at the legal and professional fees. When we perform the data analytics, like, okay, what is the trend on the legal and professional fees over last 3 to 4 years, we identified that compared to the last 2 to 3 years, in the current year or the year for which we were doing the audit, there were huge payments, or there was an increase by somewhere 70 to 80% in the legal and professional fees. When we went ahead and selected some of the samples, we understood, like, by selecting the sample on the invoice of that particular legal and professional fee, we saw that that invoice was for the dispute matters with respect to a particular law that we were not aware of. So they were taking some legal and professional service for which the invoice was being booked, and on invoice usually professional writes which kind of service they are providing. So there was a dispute advisory services, or there was an advisory services with respect to a non-compliance of a law or regulation. From there we identified, okay, there is a law, there is a non-compliance that is there, which is not disclosed to us or not being, we are not being informed about that. And we discussed with the management, and then we came to know, okay, there is a very big non-compliance and there is a very big litigation going on. So this is how you can identify non-compliances, and this is how, the professional skepticism works. That was one just example. Yes, Sumit, absolutely correct. Okay, so this was all about my SA 250, that is considerations of laws and regulations in an audit of financial statement. Now quickly we will go to the study material, study mat. We will come at the page number 2.21. We will look into the chapter, okay, in detail, like, we will have a go through of the chapter so that you can be aware that how the study material is there, what things are where, and what we have discussed till now. Okay, so on page number 21, 2.21, you have a point number 3 which talks about SA 250 that we discussed just now. Okay, considerations of laws and regulations in an audit of financial statement, in which we discussed the impact of laws and regulations on a financial statement. Okay, we discussed about other laws and regulations. We discussed about laws and regulations that have a direct effect on financial statement, the two types. Okay, so we discussed what is the objective of the auditor. Objective of the auditor is to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence regarding compliance with the direct effect laws and regulations, and to perform specified audit procedures to identify the non-compliance with other laws and regulations. So here, sufficient and appropriate audit evidence for compliance. Here, specified audit procedures for identification of non-compliance. Okay, and to respond appropriately to the non-compliance that we saw. What if you identify a non-compliance? So these are the three things that is the objective of the auditor. Then we understood responsibility of the management, how much management is aware about that. Okay, for example, there will be some policies and procedures that an entity may implement, okay, to assess the prevention and detection of non-compliance. Now basically that is the point we talk about, that okay, how entity is ensuring that they are preventing or detecting the non-compliance, or how entity is ensuring compliance with laws or regulations, how much entity management, those charged with governance, are aware about the laws and regulations that are applicable in their entity. Okay, then what is the responsibility of the auditor? So auditor is not responsible from preventing the non-compliance, or cannot be expected to detect the non-compliance with all laws and regulations. So accordingly, my responsibility, again, as I discussed, that is to identify compliance with the direct laws and regulations, or to only perform specified audit procedures for other laws and regulations. Okay, so this is because of the inherent limitation of the audit, that I cannot identify each and everything. Again, there are this is the definition of non-compliance, which may include collusion, forgery, it may be a deliberate act, or there can be some miss of act or omission, something like that. Okay. Then there is an example given, two different kind of categories of laws and regulations that have a direct effect, such as tax and labor laws, and there are other laws and regulations. Example, for example, compliance with the operating license, regulatory solvency requirement, environmental regulations, like that. Then we have auditor's responsibility, compliance with those laws and regulations, and determination of the amounts and disclosure, but compliance may be fundamental to operating aspects, other laws and regulations. Again, the auditor's is consideration of compliance with laws and regulations that we discussed. Like for example, we are required to obtain general understanding, SA 315. Remember, regulatory framework applicable to the entity and how the entity is complying with that framework. Okay, we need to inquire with the management, we need to inspect correspondence for the non-compliance of the other laws and regulations that we discussed. So there are examples given, that is, I would suggest you to read. Then what if the non-compliance is identified or suspected? First, obtain the understanding and then evaluate the impact on the financial statement, the 2 points that we discussed. Okay, then reporting of identified or suspected non-compliance, reporting to those charged with governance, reporting of non-compliance in the auditor's report based on the information available to us, whether we have the information, we don't have the information. Okay, and reporting of non-compliance to the regulatory or enforcement authorities that we discussed in the last, and the documentation part. So that was SA 250 in your study mat. Okay, any doubt till now? SA 250 in your study mat, any doubt? Sumit, can you just explain more your question, which voucher you are talking about?
The payment voucher.
Okay, payment voucher, like which voucher? I'm still not clear. Can you just explain in bit more detail?
So if there is any payment made to any party more than rupees 5,000, then the entity has to affix the revenue stamp on it. So if it
Okay,
is not affixed, then
okay, yeah. So that is the revenue stamp under the, I think, Indian Stamp Act. There is a provision for that.
yes,
Mandatory affixing the revenue stamps. So yeah, it is a non-compliance. So if based on the law that is there, like the Indian Stamp Act, if that is required to be done beyond 5,000, I think rupee 1 rupee stamp is there. The requirement is, I think, such a kind of thing. Okay.
yes.
So if that particular stamp is not affixed, then yes, there is a non-compliance. But again, I need to evaluate the impact of that non-compliance. For example, what are the penalties or the punishment given in the Indian Stamp Act if I do not comply with that particular provision? And accordingly, I just need to understand the impact on my financial statement. But I think that is also applicable to in certain scenarios, not in all scenarios. I
Yes,
need
sir.
to again,
Where the bills of the party is not available, and the
yes.
entity is making the payment through the vouchers.
Yes, so I think there are also certain scenarios in which this particular requirement is there, not in all scenarios. So accordingly, we need to check from that point of view. Any further doubt? No? Okay. If no further doubts, let's take a quick 10-minute break. After the break, we'll gather back. We'll solve some questions on this particular topic, and then we'll take up a new standard. Okay. Let's take a 10-minute break. Thank you. Welcome back. Let's continue the discussion. Okay, so now we will see some of the questions on the topic and then we'll try to answer that. And then we'll take a next standard. Okay. So the first question that I want to discuss today is AMK and Company was appointed statutory auditor. Okay, statutory auditor for Manpreet Aerotech Limited as a part of obtaining an understanding of the entity and its environment in accordance with SA 315 and as a part of obtaining general understanding of the legal and regulatory framework applicable to the entity and the industry or the sector in which the entity operates. The audit manager was of the opinion that the inquiries of the management as to other laws and regulations that may be expected to have a fundamental effect on the operation of the entity will be sufficient and no other procedure is required to be performed. Audit partner was not in consonance with the opinion of the audit manager and has approached to the engagement quality control reviewer to understand the procedures the audit team can follow to obtain a general understanding of the legal and regulatory framework and how the entity complies with the framework. Kindly guide the audit team with examples of the procedures. So you need to give me examples of the procedures that the auditor should follow to understand, about the laws and regulations or to obtain the general understanding of the legal and regulatory framework applicable to the entity. So have a read. Let's read for 2 minutes once again. You read it and then try to answer the question. So how to obtain that understanding? With some examples. Anyone? Anyone? How to understand and how to obtain general understanding of the laws and regulations. Come on guys. How to obtain the general understanding of laws and regulations quickly.
Auditor has to, try to check the initial registration certificates of the entity, so that from that he can come to know that under which regulatory framework he falls, like pollution control board. Then in which industry it falls. For example, if it is a chemical industry, then what are the regulations and licenses he is supposed to get from the authority. So that way he can come to know that under what laws and regulations the entity falls.
Okay. Okay, good. Anyone else? Let's say you want to answer this question from the exam's point of view also. Like this question is there in the exam. How will you write the answer for this question? What will you write the answer? See, we are not only required to understand the question or what the answer is, but how to write the answer. That is also our target. Okay, Anila, good. What else?
Primary is to have communication with the management, sir. As the question only mentions, maybe while answering, first we will mention that according to SA 315, understanding the entity and its environment, our basic will be the communicating with management. That until that, what it is said is right. But along with that, when the question says that there is no required for further other procedures to be performed, there we may add that there we will not go with this, as the audit partner is rightly mentioning that there are additional procedures to be followed. That would include like collecting the correspondence for the any notices received, other applicable laws, and means apart from what we have communicated with, we may check with the records, licenses, or while knowing the nature, what all the basic rules will be applicable, those things will be checking out, sir.
Great. Yes. Very good. Anyone else? Anyone? Okay, I'll tell you how to answer this question. First of all, what is asked in that question? Okay, if you see here, the auditor wants to obtain general understanding of the legal and regulatory framework applicable to the entity. It's not only about the other laws and regulations. Here it is about the general understanding, and then it is said that the auditor manager was of the opinion that the inquiry of the management to other laws and regulations that may be fundamental will be sufficient for that. Okay, to understand the legal regulatory framework, we need to only understand the other laws and regulations. That is the audit manager saying, and the audit partner is not agreeing to that. So as an answer, what I will write, to obtain general understanding, it's not only about the other laws and regulations. I need to obtain understanding of the legal regulatory framework that is applicable to the entity and how the entity is complying with that framework. And for that, I may obtain the existing entities, industry, regulatory environment, external factors. I may understand or communicate with the entity. I may check their financial statement and disclosures. I may inquire with the management which laws are applicable to them or what they expect, like which laws have the fundamental effect on the operations. In the examples, I will provide like, okay, what policies and procedures the entity is following, or what policies or internal controls the entity has adopted to identify the non-compliance or the laws or regulations that are applicable to entity. So this is how I will answer the question. Okay, let us see the answer quickly. As I said, so first of all, I will start as in to obtain general understanding, we need to talk about legal and regulatory framework applicable to the entity, in which the entity operates, how the entity is complying. Then I will give multiple examples. Auditors' existing understanding of those laws and regulations that have a impact on amount and disclosure in financial statement, inquiring with the management. Okay, I will check entities, policies and procedures, and then I will check any litigation is there or existing non-compliances are there. So this is how I will obtain general understanding. We are talking about general understanding, not a specific law related understanding. Clear? Any doubt?
Clear, sir.
Okay, so small question but easy also, but requires a concrete answer. During the audit, the auditor shall remain alert to the possibility that other procedures applied may bring instance of the non-compliances or suspected non-compliances with laws and regulations to the auditor's attention. Kindly provide some examples of those other procedures. So what the question says that, okay, during the audit we do other procedures, okay, that may bring up suspected or no instance of non-compliances. which are those other procedures that where we need to be alert?
For example, sir, ledger scrutiny. While doing ledger scrutiny, we in auditor may come to know that there are long pending outstanding for legal liabilities like PF or TDS deducted. So this will give us a signal that company is not performing, I mean, not complying with the laws of the PF. Like they have to deposit the amount deducted from the employee salary, PF salary, they have to deposit by 15th of the next month. Same way in case of TDS, that is also to be seen. So such points are giving red light signals that there is some non-compliance.
Very good. Yes. Anyone else would like to add further to this? Anyone? No? Okay. So basically, absolutely said, correctly said that, there are other procedures that may bring up, like for example, when you are doing scrutiny of documents, you inspect the documents, for example, minutes of the meetings, okay, board minutes, or some kind of, minutes of the legal committee meeting, something like that. So when you inspect legal contracts with the professional, legal and professional, parties, you may understand, okay, what is the scope of the contract, or there is something, invoices when you do the test checking of the legal and professional area, or you may, read correspondence from the regulatory authorities, or you may also contact in-house legal counsel when you are taking a confirmation from them, or you are looking to the litigations, for example, contingent liabilities, okay, or provisions for the existing liabilities. From there also you can identify if there is any non-compliance or not. Let's say management has provided, for the penalty of a non-compliance. By going through that particular provision that the management has created, you may come across, okay, this is a provision for this non-compliance. So there is some kind of non-compliance in this area, or there is a contingent liability for the litigation going on, or something like that. So let's see the example. Basically, reading the minutes, or you can say inquiring of the entities, in-house legal counsel or external legal counsel for the litigations, claims, assessment, performing substantive testing of detailed classes of transaction, account balances, or disclosures. Over there, we can identify some information about the instance of non-compliance. Any doubt? Any doubt? Okay. Let us see one more question over here. Okay. Now this is part of another question where, Mr. Akash, I'll just provide a brief about this particular question. That Mr. Akash is an, auditor, one of the audit team members, and while doing the statutory audit of a company, he identified that huge payments were made to the legal counsel. Okay, and huge payments were made to the legal counsel of the company, and from there he identified some kind of non-compliance. So that is the question, and in continuation of that, the thing is that Mr. Akash identified that large payment for the legal retainership fees were pertaining to a litigation wherein the company's Trinoli manufacturing plant was declared illegally constructed on a forest land reserved for the elephant corridor. As per the notice received by the company, the management was required to decommission the said manufacturing plant within 2 years from the date of notice. As of 31st March 2023, the company was still challenging the decommissioning order in the High Court, and as per the assessment carried out by the audit team's legal expert, there were remote chances of getting a stay on the decommissioning order. The company had 3 plants across the India, and the Trinuli manufacturing plant is responsible for more than 75% of annual production. The audit team assessed that the decommissioning of the plant would disrupt the production and the operations of the company to the extent it might go bankrupt. In the financial statement prepared for the financial year 22-23, the company does not disclose anything pertaining to this litigation. When Mr. Akash sought guidance from audit manager with respect to the appropriate action to be taken by the audit team, the audit manager suggested that no disclosure or action was required from the side of auditors as the matter is pending in the Kerala High Court. Then Mr. Akash, being not satisfied with the response received from the audit manager, has approached you to understand what he should do as an auditor and kindly guide Mr. Akash. So the scenario is that Mr. Akash, while he was doing the audit, he identified huge payments to the legal counsel, and then when he inquired, he identified a litigation on the company's manufacturing plant, a decommissioning order, ongoing litigation in the Kerala High Court, and a very less chance of the obtaining stay on that particular order. Audit manager is saying that we are not required to do anything as the matter is pending with the Kerala High Court. What are your views on this? Have 5 minutes, read the question again and then answer. Come on, guys.
So audit manager was wrong. Disclosure is required, and Mr. Akash is right. Sir, the question is for going concern of the company. The litigation is pending in the High Court, but 75% of the annual production is depending on that plant. So
Yes.
So he has to take legal advice too, and further evidence, and communicate with those charged with management, and sir, disclose an audit report.
Yes. Great. Very good. Anyone else would like to add to this? Anyone? Yes, Jenny, very good.
It is the management responsibility to prepare the financial statements, and it has to provide that there is a in the notes to accounts, it has to provide this there is a litigation and it may affect the going concern, because as it is saying, it would get into bankrupt. So we have to tell the management to actually prepare the financial based on this along with the disclosures. If they don't agree, we may have to modify our report, sir.
Yep. Very good.
We should qualify our audit report giving reference to the fact that management has not mentioned this contingent liability, which is going to result in questioning the going concern of the company. So we should qualify our report with this effect, for this effect.
Yes, very good. Anyone else would like to add further to this? Okay, I'll tell you. So, absolutely correctly, absolutely said that when there is a very big issue going on, okay, which may impact going concern, okay, and that is a non-compliance. So, auditor is always required to perform the procedures. And remember a portion that we saw, that what if auditor identify a suspected or actual instance of non-compliance. Now this question falls under that category when auditor has identified an instance of a non-compliance. So when an auditor identifies the instance of a non-compliance, over there he needs to first understand the nature, the aspects, and the details about the non-compliance. Number two, he is required to understand the impact of the non-compliance, one, on the financial statement, second, on the auditor's opinion. Now auditor's opinion, when I talk about, is directly linked with the the details or the information that will be provided to the auditor. If auditor is getting sufficient detail, then accordingly he needs to understand whether it has been appropriately disclosed or not, or if it is not disclosed, then qualified or adverse opinion based on the type or the impact on the financial statement. Let us see the answer over here. So when we are writing the answer, okay, we have to provide the details of the standard. For example, over here we will start with, as per SA 250, that considerations of laws and regulation in an audit of a financial statement, unless all those charged with governance are involved in the management of the entity, or are therefore aware of the matters involving identified or suspected non-compliance, the auditor shall communicate with those charged with governance matter involving non-compliance. Okay. If the auditor concludes that the non-compliance has a material effect on the financial statement, or it had not been adequately reflected in the financial statement, the auditor, in accordance with SA 705, may express a qualified or adverse opinion. In the current scenario, you then explain the whole scenario. What is the current scenario? What has happened? Okay. Just a minute. Yeah. So you explain the whole current scenario, what has happened, and then on the basis of that scenario, you give a conclusion that as per SA 250, okay, the audit team should either express a qualified or adverse opinion on the financial statement based on the level of impact, because as of now we are not able to easily understand the level of impact. Okay, there are certain more details required with respect to whether the financial statement are prepared on the going concern basis or not, or we assume. So accordingly I will write an answer that okay, the audit team either should express a qualified opinion or adverse opinion. So this is how I need to answer my provision, my scenario, and my conclusion. Any doubt? Any doubt till now? So I hope you guys have now fully understood SA 250. What is the requirement of the auditor, along with what auditor is required to do. Okay? Yes? No? Okay. If no further doubts, I will proceed to the next topic that is for today. So next, I want to discuss SA 260. Okay, again, that is the responsibility of the auditor. Now, what is SA 260? SA 260 talks about communicating with those charged with governance. Communication with those charged with governance. And why we call it as a responsibility of the auditor? Reason because from time to time, from on each and every phase of the audit, as an auditor, I am required to communicate the details to those charged with governance. Not the management, but those charged with governance. We'll understand responsibility of the auditor, responsibility of the management, those charged with governance, their being different than the management, all those things in this particular essay. But this is the responsibility of the auditor, that we as an auditor have to communicate. Now, before I go or perform a deep dive into this particular standard, can anyone tell me what usually comes in your mind when you talk about or when you think about communicating with those charged with governance? What communication you will do? Anyone?
So relating to the engagement nature, time and extent and scope of audit, and the difference of any opinion and some like circums जो affect करते हैं financials को.
Yes, very good. Yes, Ginny. Yes, Sumit, very good.
And
But
where the auditor thinks only, management is not responding or something, he may go to those to communicate to those charged with governance.
Yes, yes, very good.
material findings during the audit, which are affecting the financial statement and business of the client, this is to be reported to those charged with governance.
Okay, great. Yes. Anyone else? Anyone else would like to add something further to this? Like what comes into our mind that we are okay, communication with those charged with governance, what we will mention in our communication. Okay, tell me one more thing, when we are required to communicate, at the start, at the end, or at the in between of the audit?
At the end of the audit.
Okay.
During the course of audit.
Okay, during the course. Anyone else? When you are required to communicate, start, between, end.
After completing audit, but before giving the report.
Okay, great. Anyone else? If I am talking that I will report my nature, timing and extent of audit, then what is the purpose of communicating that at the end? If I am talking about I will report the significant findings from the audit, how can I communicate at the start? Even in the between, I would not be in a position that my audit is complete. How will I report significant findings from the audit? Okay. I know there are a lot of questions, so let's see and deep dive and answer all these questions. Now, when I talk about communication with those charged with governance, the reason of these communications is, first of all, we need to understand that we are not communicating only once. Communication is a two-way process and a continuous process that happens throughout the audit, not at the start, not at the between, not at the end, throughout the audit. And there is not only one single communication I'm talking about, there are multiple communications that happen. So you don't only just provide one single letter, okay, standard letter of communication, and that is given to the those charged with governance, matter over, complied with the essay, go home. No, it's not like that. When I talk about communication with those charged with governance, it is throughout the audit, at the every stage of audit. Okay, where we are kind of you are communicating with your client by providing daily, weekly, or whatever kind of progress to them. Okay, this has happened, this is where we are. This has happened, this is where we are. This has happened, this is expected to get completed, or something like that. It's a two-way process where you continuously communicate with them, okay, and you provide the details, you obtain the details. Provide the details, okay, we will understand in this. Can anyone tell me what details we obtain from those charged with governance? So I'll say two-way communication process. Give and take. So what we will take?
The policies of the company.
Okay. Anyone else?
About understanding of the business of entity.
Okay, yes. Anyone else? So when I talk about giving communication, that is from our side covered by the SA 260. If I give you one example of taking the communication, it is the representation letter from those charged with governance, SA 580. We obtain representations from them. Not only representations, but there are lot many things that we obtain. For example, understanding that how they are, performing the oversight role. See, when I talk about those charged with governance, if you understand a public company, okay, public limited company, I'm talking about audit committee or such kind of, committee within the organization of executive members or governance or something like that, who are looking or having an oversight responsibility, not the day-to-day operations. That is with the management, that is with the CEO, CFO, and department heads, procurement head, and all those stuff. So when I talk about management, I'm talking about CEO, CFO, and all those people that are running the company. When I talk about those charged with governance, I'm talking about kind of audit committee, trustees, governance member, executive members of the governance board, or something like that. Okay. Over there, they are responsible to keep only oversight on the company. That's why the term is that those are charged with the governance. Their responsibility is with respect to the governance only, not management. That's why I say them those charged with governance. I do not call them those charged with management. So that is already, CFO, CEOs that we discussed. Now, I have to provide information because their role is something like that. Okay, they have to oversee the working of the company, the strategic plans, goals, and where the company is going. Kind of an oversight role. They look from the top view. Okay, how the company is working, everything is looking fine or not, things are going good or not, like that way. Okay, so they do not get involved into day-to-day operation, and accordingly the things I will obtain is that how they are fulfilling their responsibilities, and accordingly what I will inform to them will be of that nature. Can we have those charged with governance and management same? Like, okay, the CEO is the those charged with governance, or the CFO is the those charged with governance, or the directors are those charged with governance. So management or those charged with governance are same. Is it possible to have that scenario?
So sole proprietorship.
Yes, very good. Absolutely correct. Sole proprietorship, partnership, small companies, owner-driven companies, one-person company, OPC, all these are companies where you may not find those charged with governance. Now, what you will do in that particular scenario? How will you fulfill this particular standard? It says communicating with those charged with governance. Now, there is no those charged with governance. What I will do? How will I comply with this standard then?
Sir, in that case, management and TCWG will be the same.
Okay. So will I communicate with the management, or should I do not, or should I not communicate with the management?
So both the persons are same.
Agree, but this standard says communication with those charged with governance. So what I do? Should I communicate or not?
Sir,
Hmm.
we should communicate to the management, and if they will not provide the sufficient appropriate details or evidence, then we should provide our report according to that.
Okay. Okay, great. Anyone else? Okay, let's say for example, both are same. I'll give you 3 examples. I wanted to communicate that these are the significant difficulties or issues we identify in the audit. Okay, so should I inform that to management? Should I inform to, or should I not inform to management? Number one. Number two, or option number two is that, okay, I inform management once and I inform, same person as those charged with governance. So I inform once, inform twice in dual capacity, or third, do not inform. Let's say this standards requires us to communicate with those charged with governance when there is an issue identified. I have 3 options. Either I will communicate, considering both of them as a one. I will consider, both of them separate in separate capacity. I will send 2 letters to same person, or I will, do not inform at all.
Do not inform, sir. I think there will not be any necessity of this standard when there are no those charged with governance.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, see, when I talk about those charged with governance, and if there is no those charged with governance, in that case, I will, whatever management will be there, whosoever is, having the responsibility of oversight, including the management, I will consider them as a those charged with governance. But I will not inform twice. No, it is not required to inform twice. Second, do not inform is also not an option. We will inform once, whether in the capacity of the management or those charged with governance. Let's say if you have already informed them about some matter, or if some discussions are still going on the matter and management is aware about that, in that case I will not inform again as per the standards, and we will see at the time of each and every requirement that what if the management or those charged with governance are similar. Let's say for example, I am not getting details from management. I will write a letter to the management. Okay, management, I am considering whether those charged with governance, the management is not giving me the details. So in short, I am writing to you that you are not giving me the detail. So accordingly, we need to see whether the management is aware or not. If they are aware, no need to communicate again. If they are not aware, communicate once. When both of the management and those charged with governance are same. Clear? Any doubt till now? Okay. So let us see the standard then. Now that's this particular standard. Okay. Again, as I told you, that depends upon the governance structure is dependent on the entity to entity, body to body. For example, bank, insurance company, they will have a different type of governance structure. They will have a different type of audit committee. They may have a different type of committees. Listed entities have a different kind of committees. So accordingly, we need to understand who are those charged with governance. Before we communicate to them, we need to understand who are those charged with governance, identify them, and then our communication process or our responsibility starts. So first is identifying that particular those charged with governance in a corporate, in a company. Now, what we are required to communicate with them, that is, we need to understand what are the matters that are required to communicate. We are required to communicate. Okay, so we'll go to the notes first. We'll start from here. Essay 260, communication to those charged with governance. Okay. Now, once we understood about those charged with governance, and once we understood who they are, which part of the entity they are, whether they are same or not, we need to now understand the matters that are required to be communicated to them. Okay, so what to communicate basically? So as an auditor, there are few things that I am required to communicate, and the first part is the responsibilities of the auditor. The first thing I will communicate, what is my responsibility as an auditor. So first thing is responsibility of auditor, that what I am responsible for in relation to the audit of financial statement. That I am responsible to express an opinion on these financial statement, okay, based on the audit procedures that I will perform, and accordingly, I will provide all my responsibilities. Second thing I am required to provide to them is the overview of planned approach. That may include my scope, nature, timing, and extent of audit. So that will be a planned approach that I'm providing to you. Okay, how I will be conducting audit and why this is necessary. For example, I am planning to conduct the audit in the duration of a month. Okay, and that is 15 days from the client side and 15 days from the remote site. So I will inform, okay, those charged with governance, I will be there for the 15 days in the client side or in this particular plant. If you have any work, you may reach out to me. This is how I'm going to audit. This is how, 1 month it will take, and I expect the report at the end of 1 month. So don't, just say, okay, 1 week is gone, where is the report? So just, to make them aware, okay, this is how, I will be doing the audit. Then the next thing I am required to intimate to them is observations. And how I am required to provide the details about the observation on a timely manner, which are arising from audit. For example, there was an observation that we identified. Okay, while doing the audit today, I identified an observation that yes, some of the purchases have not been recorded. Fine. Impact is material, so there will be a qualification on the audit report if not rectified. I identified that observation now. When I'm reporting at the time of issuance of report. Is it a timely reporting? No, because I never gave the time or information to those charged with governance to rectify that observation, or they were not in a position to take any action on that particular observation because I reported them at the time of issuance of report. So I am required to communicate observations to them. Am I required to report all the observations? So the question is, am I required to report all the observations to them?
They're subject to materiality.
Material.
Okay. Anyone else? Am I required to report all the material observations? Now change my question. All the material observations? Come on, guys. So the question is, as an auditor, am I required to report all the material observations to those charged with governance?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Anyone with no?
They're only significant which are having the high impact on the entity's financial statement.
Okay. Significant, having the high impact on the entity's financial statement. Good. Anyone else?
All material observation which the management is not able to handle or to reply. So then it has to be brought to the notice of those charged with the governance.
Okay, great. Yes, absolutely. So when I talk about observations, these are not only material observations, but significant material observations that is relevant to the oversight of financial reporting process. So when I talk about observations, there are two portions or two things attached to it. Number one, which are significant. Second, which are relevant to their responsibility. If something is not relevant to their responsibility, which is linked to oversee the financial reporting process, then I may not choose to report to them. But the point is, I will report significant and relevant observations to them. Significant and relevant observations to them. Any doubt? Okay. Apart from this, apart from observations, as an auditor, I am required to report on significant qualitative aspects of the entity's accounting practice. Means I need to report on what I think as an auditor about the entity's accounting policies, estimate and financial disclosure part. So significant qualitative aspects. Okay, about the entities, accounting practice, policies and estimates. About the entities, accounting practice, policies, estimates and FS disclosures. Now, when I say significant qualitative aspects, here I will explain to those charged with governance, okay, whether your accounting policies are good or well drafted, they cover each and everything or not, whether they are loosely drafted, there is an ambiguity, they are vague, okay, whether your accounting practices are good enough to sustain the organization's need, or whether your accounting practice, for example, majority of the accounting for the whole year is done in the month of March. So you are not doing a timely accounting. So the accounting practice is not appropriate. So I will report or I will discuss about the significant qualitative aspects of the accounting practice, policies, estimates, financial disclosures to those charged with governance. Okay. Then I will also discuss significant difficulties that I have encountered. That auditor encountered. And very important part, during the audit. Sometimes some people ask me that, okay, are we required to report that we did not get the parking? It's a significant difficulty. But we are talking about significant difficulties related to the audit, not any other significant difficulty. Then next part is that significant matters that requires their attention, or any matter where I need representation letter, okay, from those charged with governance. Those are the things I need to report to them. Significant matters, okay, or matters requiring written representation letters. So these are the matters that I need to communicate to them. And again, arising from audit, okay, and are necessary, okay, for attention of those charged with governance. Okay, so their attention is necessary to these significant matters, or I need written representation, and their attention is necessary. The last part is that we need to discuss with them is circumstances that are impacting my form and content of audit report. So circumstances that are impacting audit reports, form and content. Can anyone tell me which are those circumstances, or for example, what impact do you foresee on the audit report? Like which kind of impact can be there on the audit reports, form and content? Some examples if you can give me. Sorry, can you repeat it again? Like circumstances that may impact the form and content, how, and how the form and content of the audit reports is getting impacted. Some examples of that.
So in the last essay, same laws and regulations and going concern and are the example of circums that impact the audit report.
Yes, very good. Anyone else? Can if someone give me examples of that impact on the audit report?
Disagreement with management estimates or so, opinions.
But what content or what form they will impact in the audit report?
Auditor's opinion.
Kind of qualified
So
opinion
and
or
fair view, disclaimer, the
okay.
content of opinion.
Okay, content of opinion. So I am talking about qualifications basically. qualifications or disclaimer. What else? Is there anything else which, apart from the qualification or disclaimer, to which I can call, okay, this is the
The key
impact on
audit matter.
the... Yes.
SA701.
Yes, key audit matters. Anything else? Any other thing that you can say, okay, this is the impact on the form and content. If we do this, this is the impact on the form and content. Anyone? Yes, Ginny, very good. So the one answer I have received, going concern para. What else? Anything else do you think that might fall under this category?
So emphasis on matter paragraph or the other matter paragraph.
Absolutely. EOM paragraph or OM paragraph. So all these things are there which may impact the form and content of audit report. There is one more. For example, if you have, other information paragraph with, with respect to...
SS720.
Yes. So other information paragraph is there. So all these are there. They may impact the audit report, the form and content. And for that, you need to inform that circumstance that is requiring that change, that impact on the audit report to those charged with governance. Now, the next part that we are required to communicate to those charged with governance is very important part. Okay. And that is there mandatory for all the entities, but usually it is it is recommendatory to do in all the entities, but it is at least mandatory for the listed entities, and that is a statement regarding the independence. Okay, so ethical requirements and independence. So you must communicate this particular part to those charged with governance in listed entities. In case of other entities where you might not have those charged with governance or you have a management, it is not mandatory, but it is recommendatory to do that. Okay, and what you are required to report, first of all, a statement that not only you as an engagement partner, but the whole engagement team, including others in the firm which are involved, okay, or if they are somehow linked with the audit, or if they are firm, part of the same department in the firm, okay, including the network firms, have complied with ethical requirements, including independence. Relevant ethical requirements regarding independence. So not only you as an engagement partner, but the whole engagement team, others in the firm, and when applicable, the network firm also, all have, on behalf of all, a statement that they have complied with the ethical requirements, including regarding independence. Second, you are required to report, or required to communicate, rather not report, communicate all relationships and other matters between the firm, network firm and the entity, okay, that may have impact on the independence. So all relationships that may impact the independence, including network firms. Now this may include my total fees charged, okay, during the period covered for the for the financial statement for audit, non-audit service. So total fees for audit and non-audit service, okay, including the network firms, okay, if they are providing the services to the components also. So not only to the entity but to the components controlled by the entity, so that those charges governance can understand the impact on the independence. For example, if I talk about a firm has only one client, 100% of the fee of the firm is getting from that particular client, and it's a very big client. It may have the impact on the independence, or that may cause a risk or threat to the compliance with fundamental principles. And to assess that situation, those charged with governance require that information, and for listed entity, you are mandatorily required to provide this information: relationships, total fees, including the network firm, to the entity and to the components controlled by the entity. Second, you need to provide that related safeguards. Okay, that have been applied to eliminate any threat, identified threat. Okay, to eliminate the identified threat, or to reduce the threat to an acceptable low level. So this is the mandatory thing for the listed entity, recommendatory for the other entities. Any doubt till now? Any doubt?
Sir, what is network firm?
Network firm, so there are network firm guidelines also issued by institute, which is given in chapter 19. So over there you enter into an arrangement with other firms where you use the same type of goodwill logo, or not logo but the name of the network firm, kind of that.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any doubt till now? Okay, no doubts. There are further things that we need to understand. Now that is something what we are required to report. Okay, the reporting requirement, what to communicate rather. So responsibility, overview, observation, then significant qualification aspects, significant difficulties, significant matters requiring written representation, circumstances impacting AR, ethical requirements. I will write it here. Mandatory in case of listed entities. Then all these things you are required to report or communicate to those charged with governance. Now the question comes is whether verbal communication is allowed, or I have to be written at every time. Can I do verbal communication?
It can be done, but followed by written representation.
Okay, great. Anyone else with a different answer? Can I do verbal communication?
Yes, sir, we can do verbal communication, but we can do document the particular things, discussions. That's it.
Okay. So the standard says that your communication has to be in writing by default. No oral communication. Whatever you want to communicate, that should be written, writing. And I'll tell you, when we will discuss SA 701, over that particular time, we will come back at SA 260. Remember that. In the time of SA 701, we will come back to SA 260. So this has to be in writing. Written, this communication has to be written and two-way. And because of this written, SA 701 will get a benefit. We will discuss that benefit when we will discuss key audit matters. So I'll write it here again. Refer back at key audit matter. So when we will discuss, we will refer back. Okay, so that is about the SA 260, communication with those charged with governance. Any doubt? Any doubt till now? No? No doubt?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can you please give an example for significant qualitative aspects in which
Yes, sure, definitely. No issues. So when I talk about significant qualitative aspects, okay, this one. Now, when I talk about this particular qualitative part, I'm talking about accounting practice, policies and estimate. For a simple example, let's talk about accounting practices. Okay, so the entity has a practice to do the accounting entries for the month after the closure of the month, or let's say they have a practice to do entries, accounting entries quarterly. So they do not have, any accounting practice of doing accounting entries monthly basis, daily basis. They do it at the once at the end of the quarter. So that is a qualitative aspect. It may not impact your financials, it may not impact your, may not create a misstatement, but a qualitative aspect, okay, that you are not keeping your books of account updated on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, rather you are updating at a quarterly basis.
yes,
And that, yes.
no, understood, sir.
So those kinds of things you can report.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any other doubt? Any other doubt? No? No doubt? Okay. If no doubts, let's go and see that particular study material for this standard and see how that is there. We will correlate this with the discussions that we have. For example, this one we have discussed till now from here, standard 260, which is on the page number 2.28, point number 4. Okay, we discussed about Who are those charged with governance? So this is the definition kind of those charged with governance, like what is their responsibility, how to identify them. Okay, explanation is given, a good explanation. I would request you to read. Okay, then significance of the communication with those charged with governance, why we need the communication. So remember the two-way communication we discussed. So it helps them understanding what they are required to do and all that stuff. Okay, so it is which communication helps them to fulfill their responsibility and why it is important. So that is the significance of the communication. Objectives of the auditor, basically that we are required to communicate responsibilities of the auditor, obtain from those charged with governance relevant information, two-way communication process, what we will obtain, will communicate timely observations, remember timely part, and promote two-way communication between auditor and the governance. Matters to be communicated, if I talk about the matters that we discussed, is auditor's responsibility of the auditor with respect to the forming and expressing an opinion, and this particular responsibility does not relieve management from preparing the financial statement. So we are doing and we are issuing an opinion. This does not relieve the management or those charged with governance from their responsibility, kind of an statement. Then we are required to provide details about plan, scope and timing of the audit, like how we will be doing the audit, 15 days here, 15 days remote, all that stuff. Significant findings from the audit, which include that, okay, significant difficulties. Then you have a significant qualitative aspects of the accounting practice, accounting estimate, policies, financial statement disclosures. You have a significant matters arising during the audit, written representations that you are requesting, auditor is requesting, circumstances that are affecting form and content of the audit report, significant matters that are relevant to the oversight. Remember, significant findings that are relevant to the oversight of the financial reporting process. Okay, so significant and relevant both. That should be significant and the relevant both in order to report to those charged with governance. So these are the points that you need to report. Okay, and some examples are given. That significant difficulties, for example, delays, unreasonable brief time to complete the audit, extensive unexpected effort, unavailability of the information, restriction by management unwillingness. So these are the examples of difficulties that are given. Good examples, I would say. Must read. Then you have a significant matters that were discussed or are subject to correspondence, with the management that requires their attention. So examples of that. Okay, like business conditions, concerns about management consultation, or you can say initial or recurring appointment of the auditor regarding accounting practice, or all that stuff. Now, circumstances in which auditor is required to communicate. Okay, and we will see these points when we will discuss different standard. For example, 705, 570, this is qualified opinion and adverse opinion. This is going concern. This is key audit matters. This is EOM and OM paragraph. This is SA 720. These are those points which affect your form and content of audit report, and that requires a communication. So when we will do these standards like 705, 570, 701, 706, 7020, again we will discuss about communicating with those charged with governance. So these are the matters that impact the form and content of the audit report and requires communication with those charged with governance. Sorry. Okay. Then communication of auditor independence in case of listed entity. Remember, mandatory for the listed entity. Which includes my statement about the engagement team, others in the firm, the network firm, that they have complied with the ethical requirement including independence. Then all relationships, total fees charged during the period bifurcated between audit and non-audit service. Okay. Second, safeguards that have applied to eliminate the threat or reduce them to an acceptable level. Then we have communication process. Okay, we need to do timely communication, basically, not the, at the end of the audit, not the start of the audit, throughout the audit. And that should be in writing, not oral. So oral communication would not be adequate, not adequate. You need to do communication in writing on that timely basis, not at the end, not at the start, throughout the audit. Again, there has to be two-way communication between the auditor. Like, not only I am giving just the information, if I need some information, I will be taking the information, I will taking their input. Okay, and the documentation part. So this is the essay 260 in your study material. Any doubt with respect to this? Any doubt, guys? Okay. If no doubts, then what we will do is, in the next lecture, we have covered till now essay 240, essay 250, essay 260. In the next lecture, we will cover essay 299 and 402. These two standards we will cover in detail and we will discuss on these standards. Plus, I will be taking up questions on essay 260. Okay. So, I would request everyone to read till this particular point, even to read further essay 299 and 402 before start of the next lecture. Okay, read till essay 260. If you have any queries, please ask those queries. And I would request everyone, please after the lecture or during the lecture, take the notes. The notes will really help you in revising the topic before a day before an exam. Reason, because your own written notes will really help you to recall or memorize that particular point again. So please take the notes in your format, whatever way you like. But I would request everyone to do that. Whether SQM is applicable for May 25? No. SQMs as of now are not applicable for May 25. They are yet to be notified. Any further doubt? No? If no further doubts, we'll keep the session till here. I will see you in the next session. Till then, thank you guys. Thank you for participating in the session and keep reading. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.